my name is Soham Trivedi and I'm giving 5 oral presentations. My first speech is an after-dinner speech delivered at a football tournament with 40 people in the audience, aged 18 to 30 years. So, big day, huh? Big game, big meal, big trophy, and game-winning goals, and boy, was it an amazing day. 7-0 with the golden boot, best keeper, and that giant championship trophy. Like, seriously, where are you going to keep that thing? It's way too big for our trophy cases. Today, you guys played like monsters. And it's not a figure of speech. I could tell by the looks on the enemy's faces, they couldn't handle us. It's fascinating because he never worked once through the field just last bit. He would average at best. It's amazing looking at where we were then to where we are now, and for that, all of the thanks go to the manager for getting us those practice games by hook or by crook, even if you had to beg for them. And of course to our coach for training us whenever we needed it, completely disregarding your schedule and your priorities for the good of our team. And of course to our sponsor, Modern Dairy, for getting us all this excellent gear training, for getting us into this tournament in the first place. Thank you so much for helping getting us this far. You all are extraordinary people, and thank you so much. And yeah, our progress truly is amazing. We went from drooling over that trophy to lifting it in a matter of months. Due to my position as a defender, I have a bird's eye view of the entire field ahead of me, so I truly can account for our marvelous progress. For example, just 4 months ago, we could barely hold formation. We lacked the most basic of communication skills. I mean, how many times have two of you just running into each other because both of you saw the ball and we thought to call for it? How many times did Alvin just stare at the ball going to the goal because he was too scared to dive? But then we come to today, where our formation was immaculate, our communication was perfect. They say every piece of armor has a chink in it. The ideal place to stab it in order to take the whole thing apart, but well, the armor that was our formation today had no chinks. In the last game, Alvin basically flew from one side of the goal to the other, and you made a miracle save, and geez, man, that was a beautiful save. If not for that save, we'd lose so much tempo, we might even lost the entire game. Our defense was perfect. We played them like puppets. The way we manipulated the ball to come to us, Adit, your positioning was so good. The amount of pressure you put on them once they cross into our half, our territory, they barely kept the ball for a second before one of you stole it from them. It was breathtaking. And our offense gave me goosebumps. Every time the ball raced with you guys, only one thought crossed my mind. I would not want to face you. You embarrassed their defense. You broke what? 15 ankles today. You were artists out there in the field, and this game was a masterpiece. Ishan himself broke what? 12 of those 15 ankles. Your movement was so good that I myself could barely follow the ball. And Joshua had an infinite amount of stamina today, dude. I didn't see him stationed in the field for even a second. His throughs and crosses were insane. Quite frankly, his playmaking won us the game. It was phenomenal. All of you were phenomenal, and you worked extremely hard for this. And quite frankly, it showed. You did extremely well. I'm so proud of you guys. Months and months of training, painful training, all leading up to this day. How many classes did we bunk just to get training as fast as possible? How many practice games did we use just to improve? I mean, I said from the time you guys broke the basketball hoop, but not kick the ball into it, and the amount of trouble that got us in, and how Coach Sean managed to get us out of it. The hoop still hasn't been replaced. It's still broken. Today was legendary. Not a single loss, not a single mistake. We won. No, we stomped them. And we stomped them hard. You guys played like champions. So tonight, we feast like champions. All the glory, all the cheers. It's extremely unbalanced mean. You deserve all of it. Here's to stomping the next split and the split after that. So enjoy your meal, lads, but be careful how much you eat, because I'm pretty sure coach is going to crucify us in training tomorrow morning. My next speech is introducing and thanking a main speaker. The event is the inauguration of a comedy club with a few hundred people in the audience aged 18 to 30 years. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the inauguration of one of our city's largest up-and-coming comedy clubs. A place for people of all walks of life to come together and enjoy the one thing that everyone in this room, nay, the world has in common: the desire to laugh. This is a place where all of us can come together and celebrate humor. But that begs the question, what is a good sense of humor? A good sense of humor is not the ability to make others laugh, but the ability to make the best of a bad situation with the power of comedy. One could call the power to ease the atmosphere of the room or calm people down. The man about to speak has been doing just that ever since he entered the world of comedy. You see, he was born in South Africa during a time known as the apartheid, a series of laws that forbade any sort of interaction between a white person and a black person. And he, in his own words, was born a crime. He actually jokes about this by saying he felt like a bag of weed. Because when his parents were walking into school, the moment a policeman crossed his parents' line of sight, they had to let him go and do the dance and pretend he wasn't there. It's most hilarious, but it is no laughing matter. Yet this man has been able to raise awareness in millions of people through his stories, but he has been able to do so with the power of humor. Winner of the Shorty Award for Best in Comedy and winner of the Prime Time Emmy, put your hands together for Trevor Noah, everyone! First things first, that was an excellent speech, Trevor. And I must say, on behalf of everyone present here, the power of humor truly is underappreciated in this world. In fact, your tangent about how comedy is an essential life skill is really wrong with you because it truly is. It's essential in every walk of life, from acing a job interview to selling a product, or even making new friends and establishing relationships, because comedy is global. It is something that everyone understands, something that everyone can easily form a connection with. You could almost say it helps calm people down, it helps ease the atmosphere of the room. You know that very much felt like I would laugh when he goes about your mother getting shot in the back of the head, which is hardly a normal reaction to such alarming news. I feel that that's a great example of how you use your exceptional sense of humor to shine a humorous light in a possibly dramatic event. Now, God bless mothers and injuries more severe, which directly to it was miraculous. But while a normal person wouldn't want to think of such panic-inducing moments, you draw comedy from the minor details of such incidents. You seem to have understood this fundamental aspect of making a joke or writing a comedy routine or just being a downright funny guy in the best sense of the word. And I'm sure that the entire audience and I have you to thank for it. You know, I still remember when I got a phone call with you, asking you to come and operate a club. And you said that you have nothing to offer. That is the normal guy who makes jokes on TV. And that's exactly why I and everyone present here wanted you to be the guy to inaugurate a club. Because Trevor, you see yourself as one of us. Your experience would be experience, and therefore you make jokes that we can laugh at, because they're jokes that we can relate with. You know, they say experiences change you, maybe even define you, and you shape your experience in the hilarious things you share with the world. Trevor, you are an excellent comedian and an excellent person, and it is my honor to have you inaugurate a club. So, if the committee has to kind of hand over the scissors, let's get this party started. My next speech is a news feature delivered on a radio station with a few thousand listeners across all ages.
This is your number 1 radio station.
I'm Untitled Chapter, bringing you the latest tech updates. After much speculation, Apple has finally unveiled the iPhone 12 and its 4 models: the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12 mini, the iPhone 12 Pro, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. The circumstances surrounding this Apple event, however, were extremely interesting. For starters, this is a completely online event, being streamed on the Apple website as well as YouTube. Because of this, the event was a pre-recorded video, which allowed Apple for an exceptionally large amount of creative freedom, since they could now fix and edit the final version of that event before it actually occurred. As for the iPhone 12, Apple released 4 models, all of which are similar to the models before that. Although aesthetically they may be identical, there are a myriad of improvements and optimizations under the hood. Part of these improvements include the new camera system, the new display, the improvement of Face ID is also to Apple A14 Bionic chipset. The first 5nm chipset have been made, which apparently improves performance by upwards of 40%. However, another huge feature and main selling point of the iPhone 12 series is the fact that they now support 5G, next generation mobile data. It is expected to have up to 10 times the speed that 4G networks offer, granting users gigabit internet, rendering 4G technology obsolete. This means that only once the necessary infrastructure is established will the iPhone 12 be usable in its maximum capacity. That is all for now, and I'll bring you more tech updates after the break.
This is Radio Atlantic, your radio
Good morning, you're listening to Amplify, and I'm RJ Soham, your host for today's episode. Techtober has finally arrived, and Apple is finally unveiled the brand new iPhones. Matter of fact, I was blown away by the Apple event. I mean, the iPhones have this revolutionary new design. They can stand up now vertically. That's right, the edges of the iPhone are completely flat, so they can be balanced upright. Not only that, don't get too excited now, because the iPhones look the exact same as the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 11. That side, these three is the exact same photo. This time, you can stand up now. The design team were Apple are nothing short of genius. But although the design is new, they say the phone is, improvements, optimizations under the hood. So let's have a look at these. Face ID. What's Face ID? So you look at your phone, it recognizes you and unlocks. Marvelous. You know what else is marvelous? The Samsung Galaxy S3. This phone had Face ID back in 2012. Yeah, a whole 5 years ago Apple came up with it. When Android managed to put it into what is now essentially a potato. Well, let's look at the rest of the improvements. Wireless charging. Now that's amazing. For Apple users at least, being able to charge a phone by plugging it in must be game changing, but the Samsung Galaxy S6 also had wireless charging, and I'm sure you can guess when it came out. If you guess 5 years, you would not be incorrect. The Samsung Galaxy had wireless charging back in 2015. I mean, Apple is, and I quote, on the bleeding edge of smartphone technology. Who am I to doubt that? Let's look at the last one. Widgets. Now, the latest of the software also supports widgets from the home screen. Now, that's a game changer. It really is briefly. I mean, being able to look at the weather, which is a simple tool in home screen, or call someone through your home screen, the amount of convenience, the surveillance that is used for the gates and opens of customization. It's brilliant. I mean, I wonder who thought of this. And human. And if the name sounds familiar, it's because that's the same guy who coded Android. Yeah? This feature has been in Android since its conception. For a whole 12 years now, well, to all the Apple users listening, it must be amazing to live on the bleeding edge of smartphone technology. Well, that is all for now, and I'll bring you more tech updates after the break. Need to bring it after this one. My next speech is a farewell speech delivered at an informal house party with about 60 audience members aged 18 and above. Calm down. Now that the party size climax, I'd like this opportunity to bid farewell to two of our beloved classmates. John! And Jack, there he is. Now, both of you are exceptional students and exceptional friends. I'm sure that everyone here is John to thank for putting our school on the map. We used to be a 14-15 team just 2 years ago. We were lucky if we made it past qualifications. Then came in the new captain of the football team, a prodigy, John. I played on that team as a centre back, and I remember how weak our fundamentals were. Because you see, we've always had a prodigy on our team, but football isn't a game that can be won by a single man. It's a game that has to be won by a team. And in all my years of playing, John was the first to identify that. Where the other friend yelled at us who was playing, John just patted us on the back and told us what we could do better the next time. And slowly but steadily, the team started improving. We made it past qualifications for the first time in many, many years. And surprisingly, we made it into quarterfinals with not a single loss. It was a miracle run. And John was there the entire time mentoring us with this insane amount of patience. And guess what? For the first time in our university's history, we won the league. And when we lifted the trophy that year, we lifted it together as a team. As a matter of fact, John's working very hard for his SC exams. And I'm getting his grades up because, and it is a great pride that I say this, when you played in the finals, John got the golden boot. And he was consequently scouted by Jerry Angelo. And after a long series of discussions and interviews with the Dallas Cowboy Scout, you know what that means, guys? Dallas Cowboy Scout, John has scored his spot at the Dallas Cowboys Football Academy, the same school that created the legend that is Roger Staubach, among many others, after which he may well want to play for the Cowboys themselves, which is why he's leaving. Mate, you will be missed, and you will have a closer on your career. Best of luck. Also leaving us this year is Jack. Yeah, Jack, where is he? There he is. Now, I'm not even surprised to even see him here at this party. I mean, one look at him, you can tell he's not a party person, but trust me, Jack has done more for the school than pretty much any other student out there, and he voluntarily chooses to not take any credit for it. But today, I will make sure you get all the credit you deserve. Did you know that Jack is the school's event organizer as well as the school's graphic designer? Did you know that Jack's in charge of almost all the school's posters, billboards, and he's at the football stadium? Actually, I remember how closely Jack worked us at tournament, asking us all sorts of questions, asking us the color scheme, the theme, the aesthetic, the logistics, and all that good stuff. And the result was one of, if not the best football tournaments to have ever graced the schools in terms of logistics, organization, and of course performance. Not only is Jack extremely talented when it comes to his creative skills, but he's also surprisingly patient. As a matter of fact, Jack has been tutoring me ever since I asked him to do so about a year or so ago, to which he instantly agreed and made it apparent that he's glad to help, which is something that he touched me because although Jack is, well, Jack, he never hesitates to lend a helping hand, which is something I admire and really wish I had. Now, I'm sure that on the way here, a lot of you came across this billboard. I noticed that it's an awful lot of the ones in school. And that's because my boy Jack actually designed it and he scored an internship at Meta Design. This internship is huge and it requires a professional commitment to Jack, which is why he's leaving. And guys, if you take the effort to get to know Jack, or even look around the school and see how beautiful it looks lately, it's no wonder he's gone from designing billboards all over the school to billboards all over the city. Mate, I'll miss your tutoring and the student body will miss your efforts. Best of luck. My last speech is the most speech we will deliver at a TED Talk show with a few hundred people in the audience, age 18 and above. You all probably have a phone in your pocket right now. You all probably have a smartphone in your pocket right now. It probably has location services switched on. It probably contains your contacts, your reminders, your card history. It probably contains your entire life. It's extremely convenient, yes, but it's also pretty dangerous. Do you feel comfortable knowing that mega corporations around the world have all your personal information? They know everything about you, from what time you wake up, to where you go to work, to what route you take to work, to who you work with, to what time those people wake up, what time those people go to work, what route they take to work, and so on and so forth. And well, you get the point. Fact of the matter is, your data is out there. Although it is well protected, but is it ever stopped anyone? Now you may think your information is safe, that it's hidden in a secure server and only seen by you. I thought so too, until I ran an experiment with one of, if not the biggest tech firms in the world, Facebook. Because you see, you document your entire lives on Facebook, but you already know this. Because you only put what you want on Facebook, the rest of the information, it's safe, right? I wanted to make sure. So here's what I did. I kept Facebook open for a whole entire day and talked about a topic that I'd never shown any interest of any sort in before. Wood carving. Now wood carving is a pretty rare hobby that very few people indulge themselves in. So the likelihood of Facebook randomly advertising wood carving knives for random person is very low. Guess what? At the end of the day, I started receiving wood carving knives. Ads for different chisels, sets, etc. And you know what that means. Facebook is always listening, with or without your consent. And it's probably selling your data to advertisers. Let that sink in. Just think about it. What could it have heard? Who could have all that information about you? Yes, I noticed the distressed looks on your faces, and I'm not joking. If the world's biggest tech firm could get away with this, why can't anyone else? It's also terrifying, truly terrifying how easy it is for someone to learn everything about you. And I am not talking about hackers. Here's another example. Not only put your phones on, just Google yourself. Go ahead, type it into the search bar, click a bit, just scroll. I'm willing to bet money that you find an image of yourself somewhere in there. Click it, see where it takes you. What do you find? And on the website you made? An embarrassing piece of your past, your Instagram, your Facebook, your Google Plus, even shortly with your full name, your date of birth, your city of residence, the name, your mother's maiden name, the name of your first pet, and a bunch of other information about you, which will all easily lead to identity theft. Think about that. It is that easy for an average Joe to just join your identity. Think about how easily trained hackers could do it, and how much more efficiently. Think about the damage they could do. I mean, social media is pretty much facilitating identity theft. Doesn't this lead to you questioning the morality? On what moral grounds does social media work? Who does it answer to? I mean, it's every man for themselves out there. It's not like they tell you how to not get information stolen overnight. It's not like well-protected information is well protected. You want an example? Let me tell you about Ashley Madison, a dating website. In 2015, a group of hackers called the Impact Team forcefully asked Ashley Madison to shut down the website. When Ashley Madison didn't comply, the Impact Team needed 10 gigabytes of data from the site to the public. This included 30 million Ashley Madison user email addresses, approximately half of which were military and government addresses. User information such as names, addresses, phone numbers, sexual preferences and interests quickly became public. Of course, victims of data became concerned about public embarrassment, about shame, about their partners finding out. A pastor in New Orleans actually committed suicide after being outed this way. He specifically mentioned Ashley Madison in his suicide note. Well, I hope you understand the value of data, as well as data, and how imperative it is to protect it. Now, the solution is in changing your identity and displaying on the face of clarity. No, your data is already out there, and there is nothing you can do about it. Know that if you put something on the internet, it stays on the internet. Prevention is better than cure. So mind your data, mind who you give it to, and you will be safe. But if you don't, prepare yourself for the worst. Thank you. I will now move on to the reflection task. The first section is a performance breakdown. Was there a starting point? Yes, there was a starting point. The starting point was choosing the speeches I wanted to do. Within this, there were 3 speeches that instantly captured my attention. For example, the news feature and introducing a thank you speaker, which is something that, since I was getting into stand-up comedy at the time, I thought this was something I'd really like to do. I started my news introducing a thank you speaker by thinking of comedians that I could meet in real life, and then looking for any speeches they'd given that in real life that I could draw influence from. While I was writing the speech, I was also writing my news feature, where I turned to Reddit. Now, Reddit features a lot of news headlines and comment sections which have people's opinions on them, which was really valuable to me since I could look at people's hilarious takes on these news features, and I actually ended up using one of these while I sent the rest of people taking the exam alongside me. For my after dinner speech, the starting point was choosing a setting and choosing an audience. I feel that for my farewell speech, the starting point was choosing a setting and an audience. I feel that the audience setting is extremely important, and I chose an informal house party because it's very simple to determine the basic personality archetype of a character by just observing how they behave in a party. For example, an introverted person wouldn't want to be dancing in the midst, while an extroverted person would. And this really helped me determine who was who, and I'll elaborate this later on. The age group was also extremely important, and I chose an audience that featured a high school or college age group, because it's much easier making jokes for or relating with people of my age group rather than people 2 or 3 age groups above mine. For my personal speech, I started by looking for issues that really affected the world at this time, and I found data privacy and security to be a really significant one, as this year and last year, a lot of really wide-scale data hacks had occurred. So this was extremely relevant issue at the time. For my after-dinner speech, I started writing the speech thinking of jokes and people that I like to, jokes I like to make and people that I like to thank, and structure my speeches around that. And because I was so unfamiliar with the setting. So this method, while unorthodox, really worked in my favor. Were there any external influences, either artistically or in a social context? Yes, there were quite a few. For example, in my interest in thanking a guest speaker, I was dating stand-up comedy at the time and really liked watching Trevor Noah. So this is an influence that really influenced me by writing the speech. For my news feature, this speech was actually written in October, which is a tech community is called Techtober, because it's a time when a lot of tech companies come together and hold conferences where they release new products. Apple was one of these, and for the last 3 or so years, they have been releasing phones that look near identical to the ones before that, with only a few minor trivial features. So Techtober was also a really huge influence behind my speech. For the persuasive speech, as I mentioned earlier, this year and the year before that was featured a lot of very large-scale data hacks. So, which shut down major chunks of the internet, so that was a huge influence for me in writing the speech. For the farewell and after-dinner speech, these speeches mainly influenced me when I was looking at other speeches giving similar speeches, because I was so, speakers giving similar speeches, because I was so unfamiliar with the setting and basis of the speech. How did you plan? For the comedic part of my news speech, I was really uncomfortable going with the standard comedy route, because I didn't feel it went along with the theme, but I'd make a joke, play a sound cue, and expect people to laugh, because I wanted to hold a more sarcastic mockery for the speech, because Apple always advertises their products as the next big thing. Well, this is not entirely true. So I felt like going along with this next big thing theme while sarcastically mocking the design choices along the way was more apt for this type of speech. For my introducing the guest main speaker speech, the main planning in this mainly, for introducing the speaker, the main planning here included the formatting of the speech, because I wanted to hype the audience up in such a way that I wanted to hype the audience up to the speaker when I was saying the speaker's name. So it would keep them in anticipation, keep them guessing as to who the speaker would be. So when I finally go loud and say who the speaker was, it would create a lot of hype within the audience, which is what the speaker usually likes. For thanking the speaker, I started planning a speech through research, where I looked at a lot of Trevor Noah speeches and noted on any common trends or idiosyncrasies in his speech that could draw influence from. But however, the main planning in this speech was actually thinking of a speech he'd write and then establishing an organic flow from his words to my opinions on them. For the after-dinner speech, the planning in this speech was mainly how unfamiliar I was with the setting, right? So I had to understand how to give this speech. So I looked at a lot of people who given other after-dinner speeches, because the speech was in a very awkward spot concerning the audience and the intent of the speech. Because the audience of the speech is their friends of mine, or coaches of mine, who spent years with these people, growing with them. So it's an informal audience. But the intent of the speech was thanking them and congratulating them for their achievements. So that's formal. So the register of the speech was something I spent a lot of time planning on, since it's crucial. I looked at a lot of examples for the speech. How do you create balance and variety for the audience? I did so by choosing the order of my speeches, because my speeches can be clustered into 2 general groups, right? You have informal speeches and you have formal speeches. And I didn't want to create a monotonous transition from informal to formal, so I kept them alternating. So there will be a contrast in theme every other speech. I also complemented this by using minor changes to my attire. For example, I placed on my sports jacket and the headphones for the news feature, as well as props in the podium or the bar stool. And this helped create me variety in the speech. Did you do any research to gain a greater understanding of the writer, composer, language, or genre? Yes, for example, in news feature, I watched a lot of Trevor Noah, but they're all in informal context where he did stand-up routines. So although I had a basic idea of how he'd walk and talk, I had no clue how he'd speak in a formal setting. So I made research here looking at speeches he'd done, and there was only one. So I had to watch his speech multiple times and note on any common trends or idiosyncrasies, as I earlier mentioned, to better emulate how I thank him for the speech. For my persuasive speech, a lot of the research here involved finding examples where I could open up the audience to the argument, because not all people think that this is a real issue in the first place. So the main purpose of the speech is telling the audience that this is an issue, and then punching them in the face, letting them know the data is out there, and telling them how to sort it. So I look for any large data hacks that occur, and Ashley Mansell was the first one I popped out, where a lot of data was hacked, information was leaked, and a past actually committed suicide, which is a great testament to my example. I also found examples that Facebook was listing and releasing of personal data, and this is a really good way to tie to morality. Since a very large tech firm that's used by millions and millions of people is actively using your data without your permission. As I earlier mentioned, my after-dinner speech, a lot of this research in this speech was circled around the register of the speech I was giving here, and for the farewell speech, The research here also was similar. The second section is personal response, challenges and reflection. What skills are needed to approach a challenge? This exam had contained a very significant amount of acting skills, so that I don't expect them to be there because a lot of my speeches I didn't go quite to script. I went offset in lots of speeches. So the main issue for me the main goal for me in this exam was actually getting into character, because once I'm able to assume the persona I want to assume, I can make up any inconsistencies in my speeches and the script as I go along, since I know where everyone is standing, where the props are, where the people are, where the table is, and so on and so forth. So the main skill that I didn't expect to find in this was acting skills. What choice of interpretation and staging did you make? I made a lot of choices in interpretation and staging, and the major portion of these were technical in nature. For example, using audio-visual cues to further enhance the points I wanted to make. For example, in my farewell speech and after the speech, I did a lot of cheering, a lot of clapping, a lot of jeering and stuff to best emulate how an audience would act in such a situation. In the personal speech, I added a murmur when I asked the audience to Google themselves, because they don't expect to find it there, and so they murmur in shock. What did we discover by working through the challenge? Working through the challenge, I discovered that I tend to speak extremely fast, and because it possesses severe time constraints, and I have a lot of content delivered in very little time. In order to make up for this, I tend to speak extremely fast, so the point of my speeches became unintelligible, and this posed a lot of problems for me. I also learned of this. This exam was very draining on my stamina. As speaking for 40 minutes straight is a really tiring task, and my jaws usually start hurting at the end of this. So I have to do a lot of practice on my stamina as well. What personal strengths or limitations have you noticed in the process? I noticed that role-playing and acting was relatively easy for me since I have a lot of experience doing this. So I have to spend a lot of time on this, and I like to consider this as a personal strength of mine. As for limitations, I tend to speak extremely fast. My articulation falls a lot, and therefore makes speeches really unintelligible. And there are a lot of odd methods I have to employ in order to get this across. For example, sticking a pencil or finger in my mouth, and so that I can speak more slow now because I can't move my mouth before. It's more efficient with the pencil. I also do highlight individual synonyms, so I know where to pause better. And this is a major limitation of mine. Health and safety. With reference to your own personal well-being and stamina, talk about how you prepare yourself for the items you deliver. I have to do, for example, I spend a lot of time in this exam standing in the same place, so my legs get tired, my face gets tired. So I have to do a lot of stretching my face. For example, I do stuff like this and that, just to make sure my face can move as fluidly as I want it to move for the rest of my speeches. Since I'm standing in one place, in the buffer time between my speeches, I also end up stretching my shoulders a lot in order to make sure my body can move fluidly how I want it to move. And also, talking about stamina from earlier, I have to do a lot of vocal exercises and breathing exercises in order to make sure I can speak for this long without losing my voice. Thank you.